Okay, so finally we have the showdown that everybody's been waiting for, the Clash of the Titans, and that is the 13 Fishing Concept Z against the Shimano Curado K. Now, of course, I let you guys vote in the initial Concept Z video as to which reel you wanted to see the Concept Z battle, and the overwhelming majority picked the Shimano Curado K. And that actually makes sense because they were both released at the same time at last year's ICAST, and they occupy roughly the same price point and the same utility. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of things here. Now, I actually already completed the testing, and I did the testing the day after the on-the-water impressions, and there were a couple of changes. Now, the day I did the field testing, it was probably about 20 degrees warmer that day. It was probably about 45 degrees versus about 25 degrees when I did the on-the-water impressions of the Concept Z. So I don't know if that affects any kind of casting or not. I don't think it really does, but who knows. Now, the day I did the field testing, there was a lot of wind, probably at least 10 to 15 miles an hour. That affected the casting distances, but the good news is that the wind was blowing pretty much one way, and it wasn't changing directions on me to skew any results that way. And one last thing is that I did 5 casts with both reels, and I was about to pack up and go home, but then I realized that the wind kind of calmed down a little bit versus previously. So I took a look at the time, and I realized I had some time before the sun went down, and I decided to do 5 more casts. So that's why you see them kind of broken up like they are in the video. And before we show you the on-the-field footage, I'm going to show a picture of a tackle blog that I read that stated something about the Curado K's casting at this past ICAST. So here we go. Okay, we are out here on the field with the 13 Fishing Concept Z. I have the spool tension set just to minimize the side-to-side play, and I have the internal brake set to 1. And I'm using a 6'10" medium JACKALL BPM rod, and I'm using a 3/8 ounce casting plug because I couldn't find any half-ounce casting plugs. Now, it is windy out here, and I'm going to do my best to try to wait until the wind dies down before I cast each reel. Here we go. "198 feet 9 inches. "187 feet 10 inches. "199 and 8 inches. Holy shit. 212 feet 1 inch. 202 feet 7 inches. Okay, we have the Shimano Curado cake. I have the spool tension set to just minimize the side-to-side play. I have one brake on inside. That one right there. The external dial is set to, I believe, 3.5. Yeah, about 3.5. So here we go. .198 feet 5 inches. .200 feet and 10 inches. .202 feet 5 inches. .209 feet 6 inches. .201 3 inches. .186 feet 10 inches. .195 feet 1 inch. .202 4 inches. .192 7 inches. .188 feet 3 inches. .200 feet 6 inches. .198 feet 5 inches. .193 feet 9 inches. .205 feet 1 inch. 195 feet 8 inches. Okay, so as you can see, the Concept Z is quite an impressive caster. It did a 212 yard cast, now albeit wind aided. So that's almost a 71 yard bomb that it dropped right there. Now, did it win though? Now for all you knuckleheads that failed math, let's go over the results. Now, during the first 5 casts, the Curado K averaged 202.6 feet, while the Z averaged 200.2 feet. In the second round of casting, when there was a little bit less wind, the Curado K averaged 198.8 feet, while the Concept Z averaged 193.2 feet. So technically, the Curado K did beat out the Concept Z both times, but they were within 1 or 2% of each other. So I'm gonna call that a pretty impressive showing for the Concept Z, and that's because the Concept Z has a 2mm smaller spool than the Curado K. Now, a lot of you guys may not think that 2mm is a big deal, but when you're casting 200-foot averages, that does make a difference. For instance, if you took both of these spools and set them on a decline and let them roll 200 feet, the smaller spool is going to need about an extra 25 to 30 rotations to reach the same distance as the bigger spool. So when you're talking long bombing, a bigger spool does matter. Now, why 13 Fishing chose to put such a small spool in the Concept Z, I don't know. Maybe in the future they'll come out with a different model that has a more standard spool size. Now, would the Concept Z have beaten the Curado K if it had the same size spool? It is quite possible, but we'll never know. Now, the spools are similar in weight and capacity, so I don't think there was much difference in spool weight. A couple of other notes here. Now, because the wind was kicking up so much, of course these super long distances were aided with the backwind, and I don't think the brakes could have been set as low as they were if it were not for that wind. Now, just to give you an example, when I set the brakes to 2 on inside with the Z, the casting distances were averaging about 175 feet. Now, because of the wind, I was able to put the internal brakes to 1. As you can see, you're looking at least a 25-foot advantage. And that kind of goes for the K as well, but the K, of course, has more adjustable brakes for better fine-tuning. Okay, a couple more things to note. The brakes were super loud. You can really hear them on these long bomb casts with the Concept Z. That's just a characteristic of centrifugal brakes of this design. While the K, if you could hear through the wind, was much quieter on the cast. And on the retrieve, you know, the K really showed its class over the Concept Z. It's a lot smoother and more powerful because of the micro-module gears and the X ship. Now, a couple of other things to note. I used a JACKALL BPM 6'10" medium, which has probably a fast tip for the rod. So, final thoughts here. Are these bearings, or bushings I should say, hype? As you can see, they are capable of really long casts, but with the inherent advantages of the Curado K spool and braking system, we're not really sure if it was an advantage or a disadvantage to have these bushings. So, because you know the nature of my channel, I have these right here. Now, these bearings come from an Abu Garcia, and they're the same size. I've already actually swapped them out. I tested them and I pulled the bushings out and I swapped them out for these bearings. So I guess you can figure out what's gonna happen next is I'm going to go out on the field and I'm gonna do the lipless crank test with the Concept Z, and I'm also going to do the lipless crank with bearings installed. I'm gonna change them out in the field like I did with the Shimano reel bearing test. So that way we can have a definitive answer as to if these bushings are gonna give a casting advantage over the bearings. Okay, one final note here. Once the Concept Z goes through the lipless crankbait test, it is going to join the LEWS BB1 Pro and the REVO STX in the final completion of the standardized testing. And I think it's only fitting because they are all $199 and pretty much direct competition. So be on the lookout for that. And thanks a lot, guys.